I think Dr. John Kumah should have the last word on this. And then I bring in the questioning of the neutrality allowance. It's difficult for me to mention that, I tell you. Yes, John, what do you have to say?
Yes, I agree with the contributions from the panel, especially from Dr. Benata when he says that we all have to continue to negotiate. But of course, on the negotiation table, you can start from the top with the hope that you are able to ground your arguments convincingly somewhere in the middle or down that is acceptable. I want organized labor and everybody involved in this to understand that government is not against any opportunity that will improve their working conditions, except that we will always want to benchmark that with what is possible and available. We want to continue to talk and engage until we achieve that equilibrium. And of course, let the discussion go on how best we can create more equity in the compensation space. In fact, I agree that there's so much inequities and uncomparable conditions that we have to really rationalize for everybody.
50% of the labor force of this country is earning less than the average of 1,500 each month. Fair Wages Commission.
When I spoke about we are spending 30 billion every year, who are those receiving this 30 billion? What can we do to make sure it's more equitable? And sometimes the problem may not even be the available resources, but how they are distributed. Okay. So if we can have a more reform approach to this whole problem and look at the structure and the details of who get what, that's why I started by even citing Article 71, whose let me say payment package has been blown out there beyond certain imaginations. But if you look at the component of that in the total compensation bill, it's just about 0.05%. So that could not be the reason why somebody who deserves more is not getting. So let's look at how we can fairly distribute the compensation package to all workers.
Let's quickly touch on this. The civil service and local government workers, they are crying of bad faith on the part of government that this is something that was agreed, the neutrality allowance, which is supposed to be 20% of their salary. And since the agreement to pay, they say it was noted that the neutrality allowance has not been effected as agreed in spite of official reminders and follow-ups to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. The National Executive Council therefore decided that CLOGSAG should embark on an industrial action to press home its demand for the implementation of the MOU, end quotes. That's a statement they issued and gave that warning. And the strike is supposed to have started on Thursday. Yes, John.
Yeah. Oh, something.
Why are you not paying them what was agreed? Is it because now you are having the public, speak against this neutrality allowance?
No. Two key issues for considerations on this matter, Samson. The first one has to do with the name neutrality allowance. That I think that if we don't put it in perspective, we will struggle over form. We will be talking much about form over substance. In fact, the CLOGSAG, to be fair to CLOGSAG, this negotiation started since 2019, and it ended in 2020, early part of 2021, 2022. I think the agreement was signed in January with effective date of February. So this is about 2 years of engagement led by the Senior Presidential Advisor, Fair Wages Commission and the Sector Minister, as well as Ministry of Finance. So we have been part of these processes all this while. CLOGSAG did not come on the negotiation table with neutrality allowance. They came with all kinds of demands and allowances, which they justified. And it could, in fact, if government accepted those ones, that could triple what they were getting at the moment. So government and the negotiation team came to the conclusion that, in fact, CLOGSAG is the lowest paid group on the single spine structure. This is something ought to be done for them. But in doing something for them, you don't want to create a situation where once you do something for one group, when you are negotiating with one, remember that all the other groups are sitting and watching. So once you do something that they can also tap in, then you open the floodgate and there will not be enough resources to pay. So I believe it is the reason why, in trying to couch a term that they thought at the time could be limited to only CLOGSAG, came up with the word neutrality allowance. It is not something that CLOGSAG actually demanded. It was a term. And so now that, of course, the team have met again, looking at the public position on such a word called neutrality allowance. And I believe that going forward, we may have to relook at the word neutrality.
Are you shying away from the word because of the public backlash?
On the word neutrality, we will lose the substance, which is the agreement the committee has that something has to be done. It is what name you give to what should be done. And if the name you are using is creating problems, relook at it so that you don't generate any unnecessary controversy. But that's what I'm saying. Let's not focus on the form over the substance. The substance is that the committee led by government and CLOGSAG and everything have signed an MOU that something has to be done. And government is committed to respecting that agreement. And so going forward, we'll look at that. The reason why on the part of government was that, in fact, two key issues. First of all, the date of the signing was in January, and budget for 2022 was read in November. Unfortunately, some way, somehow, it missed the consideration stage of the budget. And so even though government has signed comments in February, there is no budget item for it for 2022. So that's one of the number one difficulty. Number two difficulty is that the 2022 has become an exceptionally difficult year for government, where even program expenditures of government are going to be cut by 30%. This is the already programmed one, going to be cut by 30%, which even many people have said is even impossible to do. And MOU or engagement which you are committed to also compensate the CLOGSAG allowance request. So this is where we are. And so we have re-engaged CLOGSAG, and we believe that looking at where we are, the team, the committee has been talking throughout the week. I've been part of it. Dr. Benata has been part of it, the sector minister, and CLOGSAG leadership. I strongly believe we'll come to an amicable settlement of this matter very soon.
All right.